What's up everyone, I hope you're all doing great and that you're following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, it's all going to be about tales from Central America. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. I have this story from my mother. It didn't happen to her, but it happened to her relative. So my mom's cousin got home very late from work. She was eating. She started hearing mumbling outside the house and out her window. She got up and looked out the window. She saw slow movement and dim lights. She opened the window to see what was going on. She can see this large funeral procession happening. She looks at the procession and it hits her. Why would there be one of these at night? She keeps looking on, and soon, a lady goes to her door and hands her a candle through the window. She takes it and puts it in her drawer. Eventually, she's weirded out enough that she goes to bed. The next morning, she checks her drawer, and the candle was not a candle, but a femur. She immediately tells her mother. Her mother tells her to immediately throw it away. Soon after, her health begins to decline. She withers away, bedridden, and dies. Mum was pretty severely scared by this, enough to do so herself and tell me not to go near the windows at night in fear of the procession coming out again. This happened when I was quite young. I was maybe 10 or so. I was visiting my cousin's house. It's 2 stories and has a basement. We were playing inside, hide and seek. All over the house were our boundaries. My cousin starts counting to 60. I thought I would go to the basement because it has tons of hiding spots. I'm looking around down there, trying to pick out the best one. I notice a bookshelf in the corner of the basement. It's at an angle that leaves some space between the walls, corner and the bookshelf. I had to move the bookshelf just to squeeze behind it. I pulled it back in place so it wasn't out of place looking. Just sitting there with my knees up to my chest, and suddenly it feels like I've been down here a long time. There's barely any light and it's extremely quiet. I'm sitting there thinking they should have come to find me by now. Something is off. And then I noticed something beside me. There was a darker figure sitting the same way I was. It looked shadowy and also child-size. Think like an anti-spiral without the white eyes. I became shocked and unable to move. I just sit there looking at this thing. It's not really doing anything other than sitting there with its head resting on its knees. During this time, I don't hear anyone moving around the house or calling for me. It's as though that time has stopped for everyone but me. Suddenly, its head begins to move up slowly. This is where I get really scared. I don't want to find out what's going to happen next. I nope so hard that I just kick and kick and kick at the shelf to move it. My cousins come down and see me frantically scrambling out of the corner. They ask what's wrong. I tell them what I saw, and I ask why my cousin, who was seeking, never checked downstairs. He tells me that he just finished counting when he heard me kicking the shelf. I realize that I was down there for about a minute, but it felt like so much longer. So I'm from a South American country that was occupied by gringos some decades ago. The USA had many military bases in this country and a couple of prison facilities. After they left everything as is. This was exactly in the 1990s, so nearly nobody remembers much from that time. All newspapers that had any article or news about some of the incidents mysteriously disappeared from the face of the earth. I was a little dumb kid that could barely read, but my grandpa was ex-military. He would rant and rage for hours on end because of how the government was covering for all the blatant crimes they'd been committing until their last single day. Now, Why is all this important? Because most of those places are still there, yet vacant. They were designated for our military police to use, but I constantly hear stories of haunted places. Mostly the morgue, the hospital wings, and the jails are said to be heavily haunted. They used to torture until death some people in the 60s, or so the stories tell. I qualified for a program and was in one of those militarized schools. The whole place was kind of odd looking. You see, the military police manage a huge budget, but there were many vacant buildings in the distance. We were heavily warned to avoid entering those buildings. They made up the excuse that it was because of mines, explosives, and other dangerous devices hidden everywhere. But after a couple of weeks there happened, and a few spooky incidents with some of the recruits that constantly ventured into those old raggedy buildings. Specifically speaking, one of the recruits was completely cut off from the program because he wouldn't sleep. He barely slept 2 hours a day after the constant hazing had ended, and one night he simply went ballistic. Ever since we had got there, he talked about shadow people, and it just got worse after the no sleep. He would scream and screech horribly about the shadow people. He feared for his life. He ended up being wrestled into cuffs and later put on straps in the little hospital wing of the building. Another guy also went completely crazy. He said that there was a little girl that was constantly watching him, always giving him a dead stare. Sometimes she would appear as a shadow, but wherever he was, she would be right there, looking at him, creeping on him, following him. This one took many weeks to be outed, since at first we just thought that it was some sort of perverted joke, but the guy went completely insane after a while, just like the first guy with the shadow people. It was after that second incident, a corporal walked us into the gym of the school. You know those big school buildings where the students and recruits exercise. The corporal and the lieutenant talked to us in a very serious and non-threatening tone. This was especially scary to us because this was the first time that we had ever heard them talk to us without us getting screamed at. From what they told us, we were completely forbidden to go near the abandoned buildings. When the lieutenant left, the corporal straight out told us that the whole place was cursed, and that those buildings were some kind of hub for North American prisoners of war and other enemies. They would torture or do some other horrible things to them. He also explained to us that another of the big buildings was a military hospital. The military police had tried many times to make it useful again, but they would never stop having patients with manic episodes, people going insane, just like what we saw. So the higher ranks decided to just abandon all efforts and leave the buildings alone. I was a dumbass in those times. Looking back, I now realize how lucky I was not to end up like those other guys. I don't know what happened in those places, nor do I know if any of the stories were true, but it was very creepy. Luckily, the school was moved a couple years later. From what I remember, all of the buildings in that zone were blasted to the ground, and a new base was set up a kilometer or two further. The whole zone is a part of a natural reserve now, guarded, but the entrance is guarded by military police, so nobody could ever get there, even by accident. I constantly still hear tales about shadow people in the jungle, mythical animals, and strange creatures. They could be true, maybe not. It's all really hard to know because you can't really outright go into the jungle with a video camera without getting hazed by the military police or the rangers. Keep in mind, we are also a third world shithole, and people get killed over here just by looking wrong at the self-proclaimed cartels. The police are well-known thugs that can land you in jail for the same offense, so I can't really back up this story or go and take any pictures. All this being said, if you ever end up in the Central American jungles, stay sharp. I want to share a terrifying experience. At the time of writing this, it's a Sunday. Perhaps the hangover has me in the mood. I hail from Honduras, Central America, the most violent country in the hemisphere, and all around, terrible. We've always had stories about the chupacabras or the Lloronas, but I can't say I've had any such experience. I'm a city boy, you see, and in Honduras, a city is basically a really big town, very big and boring town. It happened when I was 16, a junior. I didn't have many friends really. My schoolmates were fine dudes, but they were all mostly rich, so they used to hang out after class in hotel bars and stuff. My mom was an old friend of the school owner. Both went to law school, so she got a discount, plus the benefit of not having to pay until she had the money. To make friends, I guess my mom enrolled me in Taekwondo classes at my city's public gymnasium. I hated it, absolutely passionately hated it, having to do the warm-ups, running laps, constantly practicing the same kick over and over, the pain in my thighs. I hated it. The only thing that got me going was the archery guys, and they would always practice behind the gym. I used to sit with them after workout while they were downing Gatorades and telling stories about sleeping with women and how the volleyball team was full of hot ones. Among them, I admired Jimmy, not his real name. He was 4 years my senior and very down to earth. He was cool and had a really attractive girlfriend. She was a basketball player, and she had this way of talking that nobody could ever say no to her. So to recap, Jimmy was a cool dude surrounded by other cool dudes and hot ladies, and I was a 16-year-old junior without friends. And one day, after running all those hateful laps at 5 p.m., I was walking back home at sunset with the sky bleeding red, and from behind me, a voice called, "Why are you going so fast?" I turned. It was Jimmy. I doubted he could be calling me. I looked around to see if there was a mistake until he caught up with me and said, "Wow, stop, man. You really are an impatient boy." I laughed, nervous. The dudes and me like to go camping on the weekends to relieve ourselves of the stress of, the city. It can get really heavy on the nerves. I'd heard them talk about these camping trips before, and I was even present when they planned one, but I never had the balls to invite myself. Perhaps I was afraid to make a fool out of myself between all the alcohol going around, the women, and older, wiser guys. But Jimmy said, "Perhaps you could come to the next one. It's this weekend. We'll be shooting some arrows and probably drinking." I asked, "With you and the archery guys?" He said, "No, not them. Only you and me." I glanced at him with the eyes one man gives another when this offer is just too stupid. He said, "Well, now hold on, you got me all wrong. See, the thing is, I want to take my girlfriend, alright, and you know that she is a little rich girl, and her dad is one of those fat politicians that appears at Congress sessions on TV, and he won't allow her if she doesn't take her cousin with her. So I thought that since we're basically cousins, you and me, perhaps you can come and keep company to the other girl. You see, my girlfriend, she's pretty hot. Her cousin is also hot." I said yes immediately, and I asked my mom, who I knew would say yes because I needed friends, and effectively she knew this too, so she said yes. We were going to the forest behind San Juancito, a 1-hour drive outside of Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, my city, a hole surrounded by mountains, speculated to be a lake in prehistoric times. So on to the actual story then. Jimmy picked me up in front of the gymnasium. My mom had packed me with a gigantic mountaineer bag, equipped with everything, from ropes to multiple flashlights, this stupid-looking helmet, some construction boots. I was a caricature of a camper. When I asked where her cousin was, Jimmy told me while driving that the cousin will come to the campsite. His girlfriend laughed, and I was naive enough to still believe him. San Juancito is, for all intents and purposes, a dead town. It's so close to the city that most of, but not all, the residents migrate to Tegucigalpa to live and study. The old folk that remain are illiterate and superstitious. The good old folk, at least, those who haven't succumbed yet to the screeches and money-making schemes of evangelicals. As we arrived, Mass was just ending at the cathedral. It was pretty early in the morning, and the pigs could be heard squealing and the church bells tolling, and old ladies reciting the Hail Virgin Mary or the Angelus. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't belong here. Some middle-aged amputees could be seen here and there. San Juancito was famous for its mine, a gold mine that belonged to a U.S. company masquerading as a national one, and was abandoned in the 1920s, and the villagers, some courageous ones, ventured deep into it to salvage some ore with sticks and metal pikes. It's not uncommon to hear on the news about it collapsing on top of some father and son combo. The amputees were the lucky ones, who hadn't been poisoned by the natural gases. I remember reading some years ago about how the San Juancito mines were a nest for chupacabras. I shrugged it off because I thought the guy was a Jaime Maussan ripoff. Before noon, we had traversed town, entered the quiet forest, saw the mines, and arrived at the camping site. At some point, I basically realized that I was an excuse. From that moment on, at the toll, at the inspection pass, where they search for booze and drugs that the campers may take, for the transitos, that's how we call the police in charge of asking you your driver's license and vehicle plate. No more than an excuse. I, a shy, thin, naive boy, repeatedly hearing from Jimmy, "I'm taking my little brother camping. Let us pass. He doesn't get to go out so often." I also bought the tickets at the toll, since I got a student discount, and the adults accompanying me got a discount for bringing a minor, and we got a camp at the best clearing in the forest because I was a minor, and Jimmy, my older brother, needed to take care of me. At the campsite, Jimmy prepared the tents, unloaded the booze from his truck, hidden beneath some equipment, and took out his bow and quiver. We went strolling to a nearby pond. They lit a joint, offered me. I refused. They pushed it. I refused again. As she was swimming, Jimmy started playing around with his bow, shooting trees, hearing birds that I couldn't hear. His girlfriend got bored and pulled him in the water and ruined his precious bow. They started kissing, while I was just sitting on a rock overlooking the pond, with my big boots and stupid helmet. The sun was still up, and they were getting a little too touchy, so I got up and said, "I'm just going back to the tent." They paid me no attention. In the tent, I drank some beer and fell asleep, as the grasshoppers and nightbirds started making noises. When I woke up, it was still night. I could feel Jimmy and his girlfriend sleeping next to me. I don't know how much time had passed, but I started hearing breathing, slowly first. It was noisier than the birds, so I guessed it was closer. The breathing overtook all sounds, even my heartbeat and my own breathing, and it was putrid. It smelled like the pond water, like where they went swimming. The tent started moving, as if it was being rustled, as if something was pulling on it. I thought, oh great, now they're in the mood, even though I'm in the tent. I said, "Jimmy, the tent is gonna fall." He didn't answer. "Jimmy, seriously man, the tent is gonna fall." He mumbled something. He was still asleep. Whatever was breathing was outside, so close that it could overtake all sounds. I said, "Jimmy, wake up." I rustled him, screamed that there was something pulling, breathing, and pulling. "Who is it?" he yelled out. The pulling continued. "We paid to be here. Stop bothering us." His girlfriend woke up at this point, and as man as he was, he decided to show his bravado. He unzipped the tent and went out and immediately went back in and pulled his girlfriend out by the ankle. I followed, scared, and grabbed my gigantic bag. He was breathing heavily, holding her, scared. They were looking at something behind the tent. I turned. All I could see was the reflection of the moon and two small dots. Eyes. Two very small and dark eyes. The pulling continued, as if a kid was pulling a blanket, and the breathing, the horrible putrid breathing, and then there was saliva. Jimmy started backing up, slowly. I followed as I unzipped my bag and took out a lantern. I said, "When we're close to the car, I'll light it." We were fixed on those two dots as we backed up, two small and shining dots, just looking to God knows where, pulling and pulling until they disappeared. It's okay, it's okay, I kept thinking, and I turned the flashlight and I could hear Jimmy running, and his feet blistering as the rocks and sticks wounded his feet. I pointed to where the tent was, and there, just for a few seconds as it was running away, was this thing. It was quite pale, almost serpent-like skin. It was humanoid with a small torso. Its mouth was dripping saliva and a resemblance of black lips. It had long arms with long fingers, no claws or nails, just long pointed fingers, very short legs, and very large feet. It stood there for a few seconds as if disoriented, as if the light wasn't reaching it, and then it ran to the forest. I ran also, thinking that it's going to follow me, it's going to get me. And Jimmy had started his car, and we were already driving to the city with no sleep. Jimmy insisted it was a sick dog or a sick jaguar. There are no bears in Honduras, but I insist that I know what we saw, and it's neither of those things. So those encounters were pretty crazy, weren't they? There was a lot of variety in what was going on there. Which one was your favorite one, or which one stuck out to you the most? If you liked the video, then please feel free to like and subscribe. If you have a story of your own, I have an email in the description below that you can send it to if you'd like to, and I'll try to get back to you. Also down there is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And on YouTube, there's super thanks, and now there's memberships. YouTube told me I had to set them up, so here they are. I didn't really know what to do for them right off, so far you get badges and I think emojis. I'm going to try to customize them myself if I can figure out how to make them. So with that, if you would like to become a member, then sure. So far it's more like a general support kind of thing. You can join if you want to, if not, it's fine. Watching the video is great and it helps the channel and it's free. So make sure to comment the video, favorite the video, and all that great stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching, and have a good week.